Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Katz from Katz & Co. and welcome back to another video which I'm making here in the Isle of Man. So if you can see behind me, the door is open and the sun is shining. So the rumors about our weather are not entirely true, just mostly. So today we're going to talk about a topic which is most close to my heart, which is Isle of Man offshore companies. And the reason I like this so much is because I've been forming companies here in the Isle of Man for more than 30 years, and I think I've probably formed more than 1,000 of them by now. So it's something I like to talk about. So today we're going to talk about some of the benefits of the Isle of Man, why the Isle of Man is the very best place to set up an offshore company. We're going to talk about when they can work well with some examples of different businesses. We're going to talk about why they don't work for lots of people. A spoiler alert: more often than not, they don't. They're not going to work for you. And finally, we're going to talk about how you can really make them work if you really don't like paying tax at all. There is one strategy that will definitely work for you. So let's start with the benefits of the Isle of Man. Well, of course, the most obvious one is our fantastic 0% corporate tax rate. So, yes, I'm sure people in the UK are looking very enviously at that. But yeah, it is true. Nearly all companies here pay tax at 0%. There are a couple of exceptions, but they're not relevant to this video, so we won't go into the detail. Another reason why the Isle of Man is so great is its stability. It's also a little bit boring, but maybe the stability and the boredom kind of come hand in hand. But we have got 1,000 years, more than 1,000 years of continuous parliament here in the Isle of Man. Our parliament was set up by the Vikings in 979 AD, so that is not unimpressive, is it? And certainly the UK thinks it's the mother of parliaments, but maybe that makes the Isle of Man the OG of parliaments. So there we go. Our legal system is very good as well. It's based on common law, like the UK and Australia and US and so on. So it should be pretty familiar to you. And it's pretty efficient as well, which is good. So you don't have to wait forever to get a court case heard, which is good. Our judges are actually called deemsters, which is quite cool as well. Another important point is the reputation of the Isle of Man. Now, I mean, this comes with a little bit of a trade-off. The Isle of Man is very highly regulated, so there is always going to be somebody looking over your shoulder, seeing what the company's doing. But so long as it's doing something legal, that's not going to be a problem. But the good thing about that is that it's maintained a fabulous international reputation, the Isle of Man has, which is certainly better than places like the BVI and Turks and Caicos and the Marshall Islands and so on. So, and the benefit of that really is that it means that it's easier for Isle of Man companies to interact internationally than many other jurisdictions, to do things like open bank accounts and organize payment gateways and this kind of thing. In fact, certainly over the years, I've had a lot of situations where, as those other jurisdictions like the BVI have fallen out of favor, a lot of banks actually have required that any companies that have accounts with them in the UK in particular have actually re-domiciled themselves to become Isle of Man companies. So that kind of illustrates how important it is. Another good thing about the island is the practicalities of getting things done. We're a friendly bunch here in the Isle of Man, and we also have a large number of what we call corporate service providers. And these are the businesses that will help you to set up your Isle of Man company. They'll provide you with a registered office address, they'll provide a registered agent, they'll make sure that all of the local laws are complied with. And in fact, they'll even provide you with professional directors if that's what you need from a tax perspective. But of course, it's very important to choose your corporate service provider carefully. The quality is rather variable and the costs are also rather variable. So, if you would like an introduction to a corporate service provider, we'll be very happy to assist with that. Obviously, we know pretty much all the main players here on the island. So, just get in touch with me directly and I will ensure that somebody is looking after you well going forward. So now the next point I said we were going to look at is to look at Who is an Isle of Man offshore company suitable for? When can they work well? So let's look at a few examples of where they're commonly used. If you're a remote worker or a digital nomad, then an Isle of Man company can definitely work well for you. It means that you have continuity when you're moving from one beautiful paradise to another. You can use your Isle of Man company to continue the billing as you merrily work your way around the world, going from one beautiful spot to another with your laptop. What a fantastic job that is. Online influencers are also in a similar kind of situation. Again, they can use an Isle of Man company to consolidate their earnings into one place. And if they move from one place to another, then of course they can continue to use the Isle of Man company. In fact, any company, any business that doesn't rely on a fixed establishment, a permanent establishment in a high tax country, may well be worth looking at an offshore company or an Isle of Man company. So by a permanent establishment, I mean, if you've got offices or if you've got a retail premises or if you've got warehouses, then probably an Isle of Man company is not for you. But if you are essentially a virtual business, then you should be able to set up, in principle, an offshore company and enjoy those zero tax benefits that offshore companies have compared with those in the UK and elsewhere. So that all sounds great. So why wouldn't everybody be setting up an offshore company? Well, unfortunately, it's not suitable for everybody. And this is the bad news if you are living in the UK, of course, or another mainstream jurisdiction, because unfortunately, people who live in those places are unlikely to be able to legitimately use a Manx company to save themselves taxes. And this is pretty much because pretty much all of those jurisdictions have well developed and highly effective anti-tax avoidance rules, which will negate the use of an offshore company. So for the Isle of Man, um, so for the UK, I'm talking about, for example, the management and control rule, which means essentially that rule means that if you are in the UK and you are controlling an overseas company while you are in the UK, then that causes the overseas company to become a UK tax resident and therefore subject to corporation tax. So no benefit for using an overseas company. And pretty much all of the G20 jurisdictions have anti-tax avoidance rules of one form or another, which will have that same effect. So if you really, really hate tax, and as I say, I promised that I would give you a solution to this problem. And the solution is if you really, really hate tax and you do not want to pay Rachel Reeves anymore, then the answer, of course, is to move yourself to another jurisdiction, whether it's Dubai or Malta or Monaco, Cyprus, or even the Isle of Man. But if you're coming here, remember to bring your coat. So while relocation is a significant decision, the financial advantages, of course, can be very substantial and considerable. So if you'd like to talk about moving to the Isle of Man and how that works in practice, then of course feel free to drop me a line and I'll be happy to talk you through it. So that's it. That's my plain English guide to using offshore companies. I hope that was helpful. As I say, feel free to drop me a line if I can assist further. Thank you for listening and see you next time.